Welcome to Voices of the Community, which explores critical issues facing Northern California communities. We introduce you to the voices of community thought leaders and change makers who are working on solutions that face our fellow individual community members, neighborhoods, cities, and our region. This is George Koster, your host. This episode is part of our series exploring COVID-19's impact on nonprofits and small businesses in the San Francisco Bay Area. Back in April of 2020, when we decided to create this ongoing series on COVID-19's impact, first on nonprofits and then on small businesses in the San Francisco Bay Area, we, like you, had no idea how long the pandemic would go on and what the health and economic impact would be in our community. Going into 2021, the pandemic is now killing more people, shutting down more nonprofits and small businesses, along with wiping out the livelihoods of families, neighborhoods, and communities. We will continue to shine a spotlight on the nonprofits and small businesses that make up the fabric of our community, along with the founders and staff who are struggling to deal with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on their operations, services, and sustainability until we can all get to the other side of the pandemic. Along the way, we will also share with you all the amazing solutions that our nonprofits, small businesses, foundations, and government leaders are working on to help us all get to the other side of the pandemic and come together to rebuild our communities with more economic, social, and environmental equality.
I've been doing a lot of philosophy during these COVID times and realizing when the Greeks said, we invented art so that we would not die. Sort of thinking that art is what keeps us alive and what keeps us alive even when we have passed. And I think in these COVID time, I think we really realize that is something that I think there will be a vibrancy when we can go back into a hall together and experience art together as a community.
So Nicole, could you please introduce yourself and provide our audience a quick overview of your background and why you started Opera Parallel?
My name is Nicole Paiement, and I am the General and Artistic Director of Opera Parallel. And I started this company because I was very eager to not only collaborate with a lot of artists in the area, but specifically with living composers, and also try to find a way to sort of demystify what opera is about, bringing it into the 21st century by telling relevant stories and embracing modernist and really making opera as compelling as it can be. And, our vision is creating opera of our time and being part of this community through the art of storytelling and beautiful music.
Why Opera Parallel? Why the name?
Why the name? Yes, there was a lot of reason for that name. At first, we have this saying in French called cinéma parallèle, which is kind of not the mainstream opera. And I was very interested all through my career. I've been interested in more obscure works or things that were not mainstream. But also, and more importantly, I really wanted to create a company where collaboration was at the core. And I felt that like working in parallel together. And in French, we say that travailler en parallèle. And so I thought, let's use that word as our core name. And it's really developed into a very interesting way of working as a company, not only because of the way that we work as a team. There's a company-wide collaboration that's very a distinctive style of how we work as a company. But also we really seek works with the company that encourages a diverse team of collaborators and that provides opportunities to work with other art forms, as far as fabric designers and clay artists and these things that you would not normally have on stage or on the operatic stage. We try to identify the works that will bring those collaborations and bring artists together.
And what are some of the key programs of Opera Parallel?
So basically, the way that our season generally works is that we have 3 productions. The first one is kind of a grander production, generally done in a larger space. And with that larger production, we think high impact and low cost. So basically bringing in what we talk about as being a grand experience in an intimate setting. So even if it's a grand experience for us, it will be in a hall, let's say like the YBCA Theater, which is about 750 seats. So not your extremely large space, but a space that accommodates a larger work, such as, let's say, Dead Man Walking that we've done, or Great Gatsby, or these kinds of work where basically there's a pit that accommodates an orchestra of about 30 musicians. So that's kind of our larger production. And then we always do a secondary production that is more experimental, that is more site-specific, and that brings us into various neighborhoods and explores not only new sound worlds, but explores even deeper relevant stories that are perhaps less often brought to the stage. I think of a production, for example, of Anya 17, which dealt with human trafficking, for example, or things like that. So this kind of smaller productions. And then we have a third kind of production, which brings us to our community engagement activities, which we have a lot of, which is called the hands-on opera. And that's one that's very close to my heart because it brings the community and engages the community into the performance of opera. Now, these works are commissioned operas, generally from composers from the San Francisco Bay Area. They deal with relevant stories that really affect our community, but they bring into the fold students or young singers, and even now actually we're expanding to the older community, and they become the chorus of this production, basically a professional production where you have professional singers and musicians and staging and costumes, and you're bringing those young people into the fold of producing opera. And we present those in the community free of charge so families can come. And it's very much a program that we cherish a great deal. So that's called Hands-on Opera. So these are our three kind of main productions that we do. And then we do a lot of other activities, such as community activities that we call the Bullhorn program, which comes actually from a production that we were going to do of Harvey Milk, where we had a whole community conversation series developed. And we decided now to keep the bullhorn as an idea of amplifying the voices of our community into different community engagement activities that we do throughout the year.
And so staying with the hands-on piece, you have Harriet's Spirit. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because it's based on Harriet Tubman.
Yes, this is actually a commissioned opera that we initiated in 2018 with Marcus Shelby as the composer that many of our auditors will know, and Roma Olvera, who is the librettist. And basically, actually, it is using the spirit of Harriet Tubman as an inspiration to a young girl to overcome bullying in school. So it's really about bullying. It's a very contemporary problem that we have, but bringing the spirit of Harriet Tubman. And we did this preliminary opera, this first version of it in 2018. And it was actually a wonderful collaboration with the African American Arts and Culture Complex and student from the Rooftop Alternative School. And it was so successful that we decided that we would expand on the opera and that we would orchestrate. Originally, it was just with piano, and that we would create really a longer and a more developed opera so that it could become part of the canon of family opera. So we are actually, even with COVID, we are doing a workshop in May of this new version. Marcus has orchestrated it for 11 musicians, and we're going to workshop it. And then next fall, in our next season, we will be performing it actually in the community and also hopefully in collaboration with the Hillsburg Jazz Festival, where Marcus Shelby is now artistic director. So we're working on various collaborations to present the opera in a few different venues. But we're very, very excited by this piece. Marcus is our second composer for hands-on opera. We often keep a composer for a few operas so that the composer gets the experience of composing more than one opera, because that's often the problem is you write your first opera and then when do you write your second? You don't always have that opportunity. So we seek composers that are really well crafted in other fields, but have not perhaps yet had the opportunity to write an opera. Marcus had never written an opera. The composer that we had for 3 years before that, Chris Pratorius Gomez, was also a wonderful composer who had the chance of composing 3 operas with us. My Head is Full of Colors, Amazing Grace, and So She and the Flowers, which was a Spanish and English opera performed in the Mission.
And so Harriet's Spirit, when you say fall, assuming that we can all come back into a closed space, we're talking fall of this year of 2021.
Yes, we're actually looking into the first 2 weeks of November, and we're we're hoping to collaborate. We're in negotiation. Everything right now, as you well know, is still in progress, but we are hoping to collaborate with the Bayview Opera House on that project.
Great venue. So the other project that I thought was really fascinating was the one you've just recently announced, which is Everest, which is a graphic novel opera. Could you kind of walk the audience through this one? It's an amazing idea.
Yes. Well, first of all, when COVID hit, we kept our mind very stimulated at Opera Parallel, and we definitely thought, okay, let's transform a challenge into an opportunity. And we thought, okay, well, let's explore meaningful ways to do opera that are not simply presenting productions that we've done in the past, which we also did, but we wanted to try something new. And we had explored that technique in 2013, the idea of using graphic novel style. At the time in 2013, it was an exploration. Often you do a workshop before you finalize the piece to bring a visual element to that. So we had actually commissioned an opera called Gesualdo at the time. And while we were doing the workshop and having an audience, we had graphic novel visual elements that were helping to tell the story in the back of the singers so that we could get a more complete experience of what the opera would be like when it was finished. And it had been very successful, and we thought at one point we're going to push this idea of combining the graphic novel art with the storytelling of opera. But, we went on with our lives. That was 2013. But with COVID, this was a perfect opportunity to explore that again. And luckily, since then has been a lot of different technologies that has developed and that we were able to use into this concept. First of all, we chose Everest as an opera, and a beautiful opera written by Joby Talbot, a libretto by Jean Shear, that I had the privilege of doing the world premiere in 2015. And it's a very large opera. The orchestra is over 75 piece in the pit. It's talking about Everest. It's big. And it's hard to produce because not only is it very expensive to produce, but also it's big subject to bring on stage. So you need a big space. But there's a real intimacy in that story also. So there's the contrast of, the power of nature, the bigger than mankind, basically, with Everest and the storms and all of that. But there's also this intimacy of this man trying to climb Everest and the dream of winning over nature. Anyway, this opera felt like it was the perfect balance because it had those surreal big element of the mountain and the wind and the storms. And it also had these beautiful, intimate singing moments. The process is kind of complicated, but let me explain. First, what we do is that we look at the opera and we create a storyboard. This is the creative designer, Brian Stauffenbiel, this is his whole concept. And he's working with an illustrator, Mark Simmons, and a cinematographer, David Murakami. And the three of them created this storyboarding where we actually will tell the story through illustrations. And on top of it, Mark Simmons illustrates the singers, basically takes a photo of all our singers, of our cast, and creates an image of what they would look like, an illustration of them. Once that is done and the whole storyboard is done, we go into the studio and we record with the singers the whole opera. After that, the singers goes into a room where you put on the singers' face a technology that captures their expression as they are singing. So in the studio, they sing, and this technology captures their faces singing and transfers these facial emotions into the graphic image. And so all of a sudden, the graphic image comes to life with the real expression of the singer. And what it does is that we really focus all of a sudden on the singing voice and how they're expressive with their face because of this technology. So it's really highlighting the voice, which is part of what opera is about. But it also lets us, after there's an instrumental moment, to go into these amazing surreal moment where the storm is moving around and all these illustrations are expanding on the surreal moment of the opera. So it's a very exciting way to bring this to life. And also it's an interesting way to bring new audiences to opera, which is one of our big mission at Opera Parallel, is to really try to think outside the box to, as I said earlier, demystify what opera is about.
And this is targeted, Nicole, for summer. And because of COVID-19's impact on doing any kind of live events, all of your programming has been virtual. Mm-hmm. Will Everest also be virtual in that it sounds like an animated movie, if you will?
It is really a graphic novel opera film. So it is a film in that way, yes. And it looks like the idea of the graphic novel is very much integrated into that film. So you will actually see, if you look at a graphic novel, you have those different squares and you turn the page and you see all these squares. So you'll be going inside a living book, basically, is what the experience will be. And yes, it will be a virtual experience. And actually, we just received the date of the 10th of June as the launching. I cannot yet release the platform, but it will be a major platform so that people can see it around the world.
So that brings me to my question. Here we are a year plus in with COVID and sequestering, if you will, and now starting to go back out. And we're talking about trying to bring people back sometime in the middle of April, May. How has COVID really impacted Opera Parallel, and what is your team doing to start to think about coming back?
Well, like everyone, when COVID hit, it was a shock and we had a wonderful season planned ahead. But as I said earlier, we are very resilient and luckily also very nimble as a company because we're small. And so we were able to, change gear, and we actually right away designed what we thought was a COVID-proof plan B with a lot of social distancing and in spaces that were very large, and we would have smaller audiences, and redesigned a whole season a little bit later in the year of 2021 so that we would be able to perform. And then we realized by January that was also not going to be possible. And that's when we really looked at thinking outside the box and developing the graphic novel opera. And we also did take this time, and I think that probably a lot of organizations have done that. We really took the time to replenish as an organization and to give our time to bond in a different way between departments of the organization, and to really replenish ourselves and prioritize on where we wanted to go. It was a very strategic time for us. We were going to be celebrating with Harvey Milk that we had to cancel. This was going to be our big 10th year anniversary project, and we had worked on this new version of Harvey Milk for the last 3 years. Basically, it's a completely new version of the opera by Stuart Wallace and librettist Michael Corey. So because this was our 10th anniversary and it came as a shock, we thought, let's think about our next 10 years. So it gave us a lot of time to have quality time and to keep ourselves stimulated by what was coming ahead. And, we redid our strategic plan. We have a 5-year plan right now of repertoire we want to do, of collaborators we want to work with. So we use the time well. That being said, we're hoping to be back with live performances next year. One of the things that was difficult for all of us, I think, during this time was that we lost a bit of our relationship. We wanted to maintain a relationship with our community. So we actually just launched last month a very small, informal series called Close Up. They're very not big produced half hours where it's an opportunity to have an intimate half hour with a singer and a pianist or another instrumentalist, and basically choose repertoire that they'd like to share. We have themes for each of these short close-up, and they sing, they talk about why they chose that. It's like behind the scene kind of little recital series, and we have one every month. It's called OP Close-Up online series, and they're very lovely and refreshing, and they're meant to just be a little bit of fresh air during your day. And once they launch, once a month, they're there until the next one comes in. So you can watch it whenever you want, or you can watch it as many times as you want.
It's being broadcast on your YouTube channel, as I recall.
It is. And so we have one right now that's still on until our next one is, there's always one there that you can listen to. Opera Parallel has the privilege of having really lovely relationships with major musical organizations in the Bay Area. And one of them is SF Jazz. We produced twice operas in their hall. And we have a really very strong relationship with SF Jazz. We're very good friends and feel part of their family. So that's part of our world. And so we love to include jazz in our programs. And so that's why Tiffany and Marcus are doing our second close-up.
That was an amazing opera that you guys did there. Was it The Boxer?
Yeah, it was called Champion, but it was the life of Emil Griffiths, the African-American gay boxer who sadly killed his adversary on the ring by accident, but because he had been taunted right before he went on the ring that he was gay. And so, yes, it was a beautiful, beautiful opera by Terence Blanchard that we had the privilege of doing there. That was our first time going, and it was a perfect setting because the shape of that hall, the circular shape of that space lent itself so beautifully to the boxing ring. So the audience could feel part of the opera. And that's something that we are always thinking with Opera Parallel is how can we engage our audience so that they're not passively sitting and watching, that they feel part of it. And often we'll have, like, especially, for example, when we go to Z Space where they have a very nice intimate lobby, we try to have lobby installations and sort of create the experience before the opera. And if there's a way to engage people from the audience, even inside the opera at one point, we've done that with Hearts of Darkness, for example. We had members of the opera sitting on stage holding tusks. They were not real tusks, but ivory tusks at specific times during the production. And actually, we had these people on stage wear these white ponchos, and we use a lot of media for on stage, and the media was projected on the audience that were sitting on stage in their white ponchos holding these big tusks, and all of a sudden they were part of the production, and that was very exciting to them. So finding ways to just keep it very, very vibrant is very important to us.
So speaking of keeping your audience and getting new audience members engaged in Opera Parallel, how can folks who are listening to this help you guys?
By coming to our productions, by talking about us, by coming to our community engagements. You know, for us, it's by loving opera and not being afraid of opera. I think that there is a stigma to that word. Actually, we at first started and we were ensemble parallèle, and we were very careful of not putting the word opera there because we felt it was maybe pushing people away, saying, oh, I don't like opera. And I think that perhaps it's worth a try when it's Opera Parallel because it's redefining what it is. And so I would say join us in one of our many activities. And it doesn't mean even coming to a production. It can be coming to a conversation or to an event that we are doing. Of course, if you want to support even more, right now we're having a wonderful campaign. We're very proud of this campaign. It's called the Artist Sponsorship Campaign, where you can sponsor singers and musicians and stagecraft artists. And we're very proud that even with COVID, Opera Parallel was able to engage over 30 artists from this community and from other communities too this season, which has been one of the very difficult situations. You know, as we all know, artists are suffering. I'm part of that with my conducting career. Our work has diminished a great deal. So to give opportunities and work to artists has been very important. And I think it's so meaningful for artists right now to be sponsored by the community, by people. So if that's so inclined, you could go on our website and look at the Artist Sponsorship Program. So we have that, and knowing who we are is already a great step.
So they could donate. They could also purchase a ticket, for example, for Everest. Is that going to be a ticketed event coming up in June 10th, it sounds like?
Yes, it will be. And because we are collaborating with a major platform, this information has not yet been announced. It will be announced in a major press release at the end of April. But as soon as that happens, it will be on our website. The date of the launching of this is the 10th of June now, and it will be on that platform for 6 months. So, you know, you can watch it. You won't miss it if you want to. And I'm not quite sure of the ticket prices and all that yet, but we try to always keep our ticket price affordable so that as many people can come. The Close-Up is a free series. That was very important to us to give back to our community in these times. So this is a free series.
Nicole, what would you say are some of the positive things that could come out of the pandemic and supporting our performing arts community and engagement with both our youth and families out there who, to your point, think, oh, opera, what is that? I can't get engaged in an opera. So what are some of the great things that you think could come out of this?
Well, I think that one of the things I think we will all agree is that we all are eager to go back and to experience art together. I've been doing a lot of philosophy during these COVID times and realizing when the Greeks said, oh, we invented art so that we would not die, sort of thinking that art is what keeps us alive and what keeps us alive even when we have passed. And I think in these COVID time, I think we really realize that is something that I think there will be a vibrancy when we can go back into a hall together and experience art together as a community. I think that will be transformative and we will be appreciating. Sometimes it takes a crisis to really realize what you have. And I think that's one of them. I think also the idea of collaborating, as much as it is part of Opera Parallel, I've always thought that the future of art needs to be with collaboration, not only because of cost, but because of how it can expand our minds. And I think that right now, I see more conversation between organizations on how to do this well and how to do it together rather than just all ourselves in little boxes. So I think that will be something that will really vibrate when we come back. And I would say that, opera is about storytelling. And storytelling is one thing that we all share. It's something that's in our core as human beings. And I think if we think of opera as storytelling with the use of beautiful music and scenery and, the visuals that go with it, and if we tell the right stories, which I think is very important, and we say it in the right way, then it's uplifting. So I would urge people to think of opera more as a storytelling experience than this long and laborious thing that you have to understand.
That was wonderful. And such fascinating stories. To your point, Opera Parallel's not your grandfather's opera.
No, it's not. It might be your kid's opera almost. Sometimes people say, oh, I'd like to bring, for example, when you were talking of Champion, I'd like to bring my kid. Is it okay to bring a child? And I thought, absolutely. These stories are ageless and they meant to be talking about the human condition from when you feel your child is able to sit. And also one of the things is these operas often we choose are slightly less long. So, for people that are intimidated about thinking, oh, opera 3 hour long, a lot of the newer operas have a sensitivity to length. So they vary from 60 to 90 minutes often. So it's an experience that is for younger people that say, oh, they don't have the capacity to sit for so long. It's not that long.
Thank you, Nicole, for sharing the work of Opera Parallel today. We will make sure that listeners have your contact information, website, and social media so they can follow Opera Parallel Productions, purchase tickets to your productions, get engaged, and support your mission. Please stay safe and healthy out there as we work our way through this very strange new normal.
Thank you again, George.
That's it for this episode of Voices of the Community. You've been listening to the voice of the Artistic and General Director of Opera Parallel, Nicole Payment. To find out more about Opera Parallel's graphic novel opera, Everest, and to participate in their artist sponsorship campaign, please go to operaparallel.org. Please tune in to next week's show where we'll be featuring the voices from Theater Bay Area about how they're helping theaters and theater workers through the pandemic, and Cal Nonprofits about their development of government policy and resources to support nonprofits as they struggle to survive through the pandemic. And on May 12th, our Stockton radio broadcasting partner, KWDC, will be broadcasting the final 2 episodes of the radio documentary series on the city of Stockton, California. You can stream the May 12th, 4 p.m. 90-minute broadcast on kwdc.fm or from my website, georgecoster.com, and click on Voices of the Community, and then click on the Stockton series. We hope that you enjoyed the insights, points of view, and personal stories from the voices of changemakers and their nonprofits and small businesses featured in this series. To find out more and get engaged with the nonprofits, small businesses, and staff members featured in the series, please go to my website, georgecoster.com, and click on Voices of the Community to find links to the extended versions of these interviews and to listen to the entire series. After listening to these stories, we hope that you will consider making a donation and volunteering to provide a hand up to your fellow community members. I want to thank my associate producer, Eric Estrada, and Casey Nance at Citron Studios, along with the wonderful crew at the San Francisco Public Press and KSFP. Voices of the Community is a member of Intersection for the Arts. which allows us to offer you a tax deduction for your contributions. Please go to georgecoster.com and click on the donate link to make a donation to help us provide future shows just like this one. While you're on our website, you can enjoy our archived past shows, which feature community voices working on solutions to critical issues facing Northern California communities. And you can sign up for our newsletter to find out more about future shows, as well as shows and events from the organizations that are included in our episodes. Take us along on your next COVID walk by subscribing to Voices of the Community on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at George Coster, and we'd love to hear from you with feedback and show ideas, so send us an email to george@georgecoster.com. I'm George Coster in San Francisco, and thank you for listening.